There's a moment in Plato's Republic, written almost 2,000 years ago, where Socrates describes a cave. You know the allegory. Prisoners chained to a wall, watching shadows flicker on the stone in front of them. They've been there their whole lives. The shadows are all they know. And because they have no access to anything else, they believe the shadows are reality. This is usually taught as a metaphor for ignorance, but I think it's most accurate to use it as a way of showing what it's like to be on your phone in 2026. Because here's the thing that Plato understood that we keep forgetting. The prisoners in the cave are not stupid. They're not lazy. They're not morally failing. They simply do not know there is anything else. The chains are invisible. The cave feels like the whole world. And that is exactly how the attention economy works today. Not by making you dumb, but by making you forget that there was anything else outside the feed. So let's update Plato's metaphor. The cave is your phone. The shadows are the content, the reels, the shorts, the notifications, the infinite scroll. The chains are the algorithms, and the fire cast in those shadows, that's the attention economy itself. A system designed not to inform you or entertain you, but to keep you seated, watching, consuming. The French philosopher Guy Debord wrote in 1967 in a book called The Society of the Spectacle. His central argument was the modern life had become a spectacle, that we are no longer living our experiences, but watching representations of experiences. He wrote, all that has become directly lived has become mere representation. Debord was writing about television. He had no idea what was coming, because what we have now isn't just a spectacle, it's a personalized spectacle. The algorithm doesn't show you a universal broadcast, it shows you your specific shadows. It learns what keeps you watching and shows you more of that. The caves have been custom built for all of us, individually. Neil Postman, writing in 1985, took this further in Amusing Ourselves to Death. He argued that George Orwell's 1984 wasn't the dystopia we should try to ignore. The real threat wasn't censorship, it was entertainment. Postman wrote that people would love their technologies that undo their thinking, not because they were forced to, but because it felt good. And here's where Plato comes back, because Plato didn't just describe the cave, he describes what happens when someone escapes it. In the allegory, one prisoner breaks free and crawls out into sunlight, and the light is blinding. His eyes can't adjust. He wants to just go back to the cave where everything was comfortable and familiar. And that's what it feels like to put your phone down for a full day. It's not relaxing, it's uncomfortable. You reach for it out of habit. You feel like you're missing out on something. The cave was warm and the sunlight hurts. But here's the layer to Plato's thinking that almost nobody talks about. And it's not about screens at all, it's more about writing. In Phaedrus, Plato tells a story about Thuth, who invented writing and presented it as a gift to the king. Thuth said writing would improve memory and make people smarter. The king disagreed. He said writing would do the opposite. It would destroy memory because people would stop practicing remembering things. They would only rely on external marks rather than their own. This is extraordinary. Plato, the man who wrote some of the most important texts in Western civilization, was skeptical of writing himself. He worried that outsourcing knowledge to a page would weaken the mind. And honestly, he was partially right. We don't memorize poetry anymore. We don't learn phone numbers. We don't retain directions. We outsourced all of it. No paper, but to a phone. The German-Korean philosopher Han updated his idea of digital age. In The Swarm, published in 2017, he argued the digital communications doesn't just change what we think, it changes how we think. The constant stream of information fragments our attention so severely that deep, sustained thought becomes nearly impossible. Han calls this the crisis of contemplation. We can process enormous amounts of information, but we can no longer sit with a single idea long enough to understand it. And this connects to something the philosopher Simone Weil wrote in the 1940s. Weil said that attention, taken to its highest degree, is the same thing as prayer. Real attention, the kind where you give yourself completely to the thing in front of you, requires love. You have to care about the thing you're attending to. And the attention economy has replaced this kind of deep caring attention with something shallow and that can be easily monetized. We don't attend to things anymore, we consume them, and that's the vast difference. So what does Plato's escape actually look like in practice? Not deleting your phone, that's the fantasy version. The realistic version is something the Stoics would like to say, prososia, attention to oneself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that the beginning of philosophy is the recognition of what is and what isn't in your control. Your phone is in your control. The algorithm is not. The content on your feed is not. But whether you open the app, that's yours. Marcus Aurelius, writing in Meditations, put it even more simply. He says the soul becomes dyed with the colour of your thoughts. If you spend 9 hours a day absorbing fragments of other people's lives, your inner world starts to look like that. Fragmentized, scattered, borrowed. Zuboff, who coined the term surveillance capitalism in 2019, pointed out that the problem isn't just that we're distracted, it's that our behaviour is being harvested as raw material for prediction and profit. Every scroll, every pause, every click teaches the algorithm how to keep you longer. You're not a customer. You are the resource being mined. But Plato's allegory offers hope at the end that Zubov's analysts didn't, because in Plato's story, the escaped prisoner doesn't just save himself, he goes back into the cave to tell the others what he's seen, and they laugh at him. They think he's insane, but he goes back anyway. And I think that's the part of the allegory that matters the most to us. Escaping the cave isn't a permanent state, it's practice. You step outside, you see the sun, and then you go back in, because you have to live, because you have responsibilities, because you can't actually just abandon your phone in 2026 and still function. But you going back in, knowing it's a cave, and that knowledge, that awareness changes everything. Plato didn't predict smartphones. He didn't foresee algorithms or feeds or notifications, but he understood something fundamental about human beings that Silicon Valley either doesn't understand or doesn't care about. Which is this: if you build a system that shows shadows and never lets them see the sun, they won't know they're missing anything. They'll think the shadows are the whole world. Your phone is not the enemy, but if you never step outside, if you never sit in the silence, never walk without headphones, never let yourself get bored enough for a real thought to form, then you are living in a cave specifically made for you. But the most dangerous thing is that it feels like home. Plato asked us to look at the chains and ask whether they're really necessary. 2,400 years later, the question is more urgent than it has ever been. Thank you for watching the video. Have an amazing day.